So, good morning, everyone. Uh, Welcome to today's session. Today, we will be discussing perceptron learning algorithm, right? Wherein we will try to understand how a perceptron will learn to calculate weights, right? So, before that, we will have a quick recap of what is a perceptron. Means whatever we have discussed in the previous class, we will try to have a quick recap. Then we will see the perceptron learning algorithm. Then we will see what are the limitations of perceptron, and then we talk about one important concept called as gradient descent. Right, gradient descent is an important concept because that is a fundamental component of an algorithm called as back propagation algorithm. So back propagation is a very commonly used algorithm in neural networks. So there are so many types of neural networks that are available. So we have feed forward neural networks, we have convolutional neural networks, we have recurrent neural networks. If you remember in introduction class of neural networks, I have explained you what is the purpose of each type of neural network. Suppose if you are dealing with images, right, then convolutional neural networks are very useful if you are dealing with image processing applications or computer vision applications. And suppose if you are dealing with sequences means for example, I have a video file with me, and for that video file I need to generate some captions, right? So sequence of words or sequence of characters, nothing but sequences. So if you are dealing with sequences, then you can go for recurrent neural network, right? And for normal, what we say, classification problems, clustering problems, you can use forward neural networks, right? So whatever may be the type of neural network, right? In almost every type of neural network, back propagation algorithm will be used to train the layers in the neural network. So one of the very widely used common algorithm is back propagation algorithm in neural networks. And back propagation algorithm is based on the concept called as gradient descent. So you have to understand what is gradient descent. So in today's session, we try to introduce you gradient descent. Before that, we will be discussing perceptron learning algorithm, because gradient descent will come into picture when we know what are the limitations of perceptron. So in the last class, we have seen what is a perceptron. We have understood what is x1, x2, x3, w1, w2, w3, like that. So what is a perceptron? We have already seen. Now perceptron learning algorithm we will see now. Then we try to identify what are the limitations of perceptron learning algorithm. Then we will go for gradient descent. Right. So this is the connectivity. So fine, friends. So we will move on. Just quick recap of previous topic, and then we will continue with perceptron learning algorithm. Right. So this is what we have discussed in the last class. So a MP neuron, the major difference between neuron and perceptron is in neuron you don't have weights. Means every input is have will have equal importance. But if you want to have different weightages for every input, which is a very practical situation, right? So all inputs need not have equal importance. That's the reason weights are mandatory. So in neuron we don't have weights concept, whereas in perceptron we have weight 1, weight 2, weight 3, like that. For every input there is some weight, w1, w2, like that. And apart from Boolean inputs, perceptron can accept non-Boolean inputs also, and output of perceptron can be a real value or it can be a Boolean value. So all limitations of MP neuron are what we say, you can say we can overcome those limitations of MP neuron using perceptron. We have seen that. Now we have tried to understand the output function y of a perceptron, which we have discussed in our last class. So y is equal to y will be 1 if summation of all these products, like every input will be multiplied with its weight, w1 into x1, w2 into x2, like that. We will multiply all these things and we'll add them. So summation of this one should be greater than or equal to some threshold value. If the threshold value, if the summation value is greater than the threshold, then the output of perceptron will be 1, otherwise output of perceptron will be 0. So now comes the question, what is this threshold? Who will decide the threshold? All these things will come into picture, right? So which we have discussed in our previous class, and we have rewritten this equation as y is equal to 1, right? If sigma of y I equal to 1 to n, wi into xi minus theta is greater than or equal to 0. So I have explained you why it is, how come this is minus theta greater than 0 and minus theta less than 0, why it is 1 and 0, that we have already discussed. Once again, I'll tell you. So I'll take an example, same example which we have discussed in the last class. So let us assume these x1, x2, x3 represents different parameters, and w1, w2, w3 are certain weights for every parameter. Now output y is equal to 1 means I will buy a product. Suppose I am doing an online shopping. Output y equal to 0 means I will not buy the product. Let us say I will buy the product if the reviews, whatever you have calculated, if that rating of that product is anything above 4.5, or let us say rating of the product is above 4, then I would like to buy that product. And if the rating is less than 4, I will not buy the product. So this theta threshold is 4 now. So theta is 4. Now what is x1, x2, x3? X1, x2, x3 are different parameters. X1 is how is the camera quality, x2 is what is the performance of the mobile phone, means the speed, all those things. X3 is whether it is a lightweight mobile or not, maybe some other features like that. So based on all those features, right, based on the inputs given by different people, I will try to compute the rating, right? Suppose I got the rating as 3.9. So 3.9, now what is the threshold? 4. So what I will do, I will subtract the threshold from whatever value I got, whatever sigma I got. I will try to, this sigma is nothing but whatever calculations I have done. Let us say I got this product, sum of product as 3.9 and theta is 4. 3.9 minus 4 means I will get a negative value. It means what? It is less than 4, so I will not buy the product. So if it is less than 0, if this difference is less than 0, y is equal to 0 means my output is 0. Output is 0 means perceptron will not fire, means the decision is I will not buy the product. Suppose, friends, suppose if this sigma of wi into xi, let us say I got this value as 4, and what is theta threshold? Threshold is also 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. 0 greater than or equal to 0? Yes, it is equal to 0. 0 equal to 0. So again, I'll buy the product y is equal to 1. Suppose if my product is 5 and threshold is 4, 5 minus 4 is 1, 1 greater than 0, I'll buy the product. So like that, we try to represent the perceptron with this output function, which we have discussed elaboratedly in our previous class, right? So that's the reason we have modified the diagram of this perceptron, which you are seeing here. So what do you mean by this rewriting the equation? What I understand is one more important input called as theta is required, right? So there should be, apart from x1, x2, x3, there should be one more input which is called as x0, and its weight should be minus theta. It should be minus theta because I am adding it. Please try to understand. I am going to add it. I'll just write it and I'll show you. I'll just my intention is something like this: wi into xi, right? This is for my all x1, x2, x3, all those things. Plus, I am going to add now. So what I am going to add? I am going to add one new input, right, which is called as x0, and its weight is minus theta, right? Now what is x0? X0 is one more input. So if it is 1 means that input is present. If the value of x0 is 1, input is present. If the value of x0 is 0, input is not present. So, and this is a mandatory input because of this equation. we understand that it's a mandatory input. So x naught will be 1. 1 into minus theta is minus theta. So sigma of wi xi plus of minus theta is nothing but minus theta. So same thing, I can write it like this. So I'm adding one more input. So this equation which is being highlighted here can also be understood like this. So what I am doing to this sigma, to this particular neural network perceptron, what I am doing is I am adding one more input plus one more input. That input is x naught and its weight is minus theta. That's the reason. That's the reason we have added x naught is equal to 1. X naught equal to 1 means it is present. Input is present. It is always present. W naught is its weight and its weight is minus theta. Its weight is minus theta. So this we have discussed, and why is W naught equal to minus theta called as bias, all those things we have discussed, right? So why are we trying to implement Boolean functions? Because we are making a decision whether to go to a movie or not. Means outcome is Boolean, and I told you every time we may not deal with Boolean functions. For example, input to my neural network can be a image file, and I need to generate a caption for that image. Suppose you show me a Statue of Liberty and you just give me an image of Statue of Liberty. I should generate some name like it's a statue, right? So some meaningful caption to that image should be given, right? So in such cases, output need not be Boolean every time, right? So why are we trying to implement Boolean functions? Why do we need weights? And why W naught equal to minus theta? All these three things we have already discussed. We understood what is minus theta, all those things, right? Now in the last class, if you remember, we have substituted, like we have taken an example, we have tried to represent a perceptron. We are trying to create a perceptron which can implement an OR function. Means the perceptron will look like this. The perceptron will look like this. It will have x1, it will have x1, x2, x0 is a mandatory input. Now what is the weight for x0? Minus theta, right? But what is the theta I need to calculate? I don't know as of now. x1 is w1, x2 is w2, and this is my output y. So if you observe here, what we have done, the truth table of OR gate 0 0, when both inputs are zeros, output should be 0. In all remaining cases, output should be 1. Means my perceptron should generate output as 1 if any one of the inputs x1 and x2 are 1, right? So what we have done, we have tried to substitute those values in this formula, right? So W naught is a default thing which will be added to this one. So just like our previous function, W naught is added to every perceptron. So it is a mandatory input. So what we have done, sigma I is equal to 1 to n. Here n is only 1 to 2 because we have only two inputs, x1, x2. Wi into xi. So only two inputs. So it will look like this. W naught into W1, W naught into X naught plus W1 into X1 means respective weights as well as their products. So if we substitute all those values, like for X1, X2, I know the values, but weight values I don't know. So what happened when I substituted it, I got it as W naught is less than 0. Why should I write less than 0? Because see here, output is 0. When x1, x2 are both are zeros, output is 0. When x1, x2 both are zeros, output is 0. Output is 0 means if you remember in our previous equation, y is equal to 0 means the expression was saying sigma of x1 into xi into wi minus theta less than 0. So that's the reason it is less than 0. Similarly, all four combinations we have substituted, which gave us four different results, which we can interpret. So what I came to know is w naught must be less than 0. This is one what we say useful outcome I got after substituting x1 x2. Similarly, I'll substitute 0 1. When I substitute 0 1 in this equation, I got one more observation, like w2 is greater than minus w naught. Another observation is w1 must be greater than minus w naught. Another observation, w1 plus w2 summation must be greater than minus w naught. Now these relationships between w naught, w1, w2 will help me in making proper predictions. So what I will do is, initially I need to predict, starting in the beginning of the perceptron. Initially I have to decide some w naught value, some w1 value, some w2 value. So randomly we will take the values, but when I take the values randomly, I should make sure that the relationship between w1, w2 and w naught is maintained. So what is the relationship between all these weight variables? I got it here. So accordingly, by maintaining this relationship, so whatever value I take for w naught, it should be like less than w2. Whatever value I take for w1, it should be greater than minus w naught. Like that, I will take my initial values for randomly, I will assign values for weights. Then over a period of time, I try to train my algorithm. I'll make changes in the weights till I get convergence. What is convergence? What is convergence? 100% accuracy is convergence. So what we will do initially, randomly we will put weights and our perceptron will start working, but it may not give accurate results. Obviously, it will not give accurate results. So what we will try to do, in order to reach to that accurate result, if there is no accuracy, means what? There is an error. So we will try to minimize that error by making some modifications in the weights. So entire story of neural network is related to this concept only, sir. So initially we have some inputs. For every input we assign random weights, and we will see how our network will behave, or how our perceptron will behave. Obviously it will not give 100% accurate results. Then what we will do, we will come back and we will make some changes in weights, and we will see again what is the outcome, whether the error was minimized or not. So entire process of minimizing the errors is called as optimization of the network, right? So the basic perceptron we have seen, and how a perceptron will look like, all those things we have seen. Any doubts? Someone is typing something. Yeah, nothing. Right. This is a more what we say accepted convention of perceptron, which we have already seen. X naught will be always 1, W naught should be minus theta. Right. Now coming to the perceptron learning algorithm. See here, this algorithm is very important. Perceptron learning algorithm. Perceptron. If you look into the textbook, standard textbook, the author uses the word perceptron training rule, right? Perceptron training rule, both are same, sir. Perceptron training rule or perceptron learning algorithm, both are same. Perceptron learning algorithm. Now see the first step. What is P? Inputs with label 1. Inputs with label 1 means positive inputs. N, inputs with label 0. Inputs with label 1. Inputs with label 0. Right? Initialize W, which is equal to W1, W2, W3, W4, Wn. How many inputs we have? Those many weights will come. So initialize W randomly. Initialize W randomly. So friends, here we have two vectors. One is called as W, another one is called as X. One is called as W, another one is called as X. So what is a vector? I have told you what is scalar, what is vector, what is matrix, what is tensor, right? So what is a vector? It is nothing but an array of numbers. Vector is an array of numbers. So here X is one vector which represents x1, x2, xn, x1, x2, xn. If there are 10 inputs, it will be x1 to x10. Similarly, w1 is the weight for x1, w2 is the weight for x2, wn is the weight for xn. Means if you have 10 inputs, you will have 10 weights also. So just initialize these weights randomly. That is the first step. Now while not of convergence means as long as the error is not minimized, or as long as the error is not totally eliminated, you have to repeat the process or repeat the loop. So while not of convergence, what is convergence? It is a point where our expected value and generated values are not same. There is a difference, there is a gap, there is an error. So slowly I try to minimize that error. I'll try to bring both of them very close to each other, such that at one point I don't find any difference in my expected values and generated values. Then I say my perceptron or my neural network is working properly. Means every neural network has to converge. Every neural network has to converge. While not of convergence means as long as it is not converging, I need to repeat this process. So there are two steps, my dear friends. Please observe. Right? Pick randomly some input. Right? From where I should pick input? Inputs are from P union N. P union N means P means what? Inputs which are labeled 1. N means inputs which are labeled 0. Means if you try to recollect our example of playing tennis, what we say, decision tree example, if you see the data set of decision tree, playing tennis was our outcome variable. In that data set, there were 14 records, my dear friends. Out of those 14 records, 9 were positive examples, 5 were negative examples. I hope you remember that. 9 were positive examples and 5 were negative examples. So 9 plus 5 total 14. Out of all these 14 examples, we will pick one example, right? So pick randomly X which belongs to P union N. P union N is nothing but out of these total 14 records, pick randomly any one record. Now if X belongs to P, means if it is a positive example, then what I will do is on that positive example, I'll try to do the summation. I'll try to calculate this product, sum of product, Wi into Xi. So if X belongs to P, and if I calculate this particular value, and if I get this one as less than 0, what do you mean by this? When Wi into Xi is less than 0, when it will be less than 0? Please tell me when it will be less than 0. Please respond. When it will be less than 0. I want you people to respond. Please respond. So see here, sigma of I equal to 1 to n, Wi into Xi less than 0. I'll calculate Wi into Xi. This value I will calculate, right? For this positive example, I will calculate this value. And if I am getting this less than 0, when I will get less than 0? Or if I get less than 0, what do you mean by this? Output is 0. Great. 572 output is 0. So friends, if we if one second, yeah, So if we try to go back, if you observe here, see this one, please observe this carefully. As per perceptron output function, sigma of Wi into xi minus theta is less than 0. If I get this one as less than 0, it means perceptron output is 0. And if it is greater than 0, output should be 1. Now, coming to this algorithm, now this is an interesting point, my dear friends. You have to observe and you have to understand this one. What is this x? If x belongs to P, x belongs to P, what do you mean by this? X belongs to P means it's a positive example. It's a positive example. It's a positive example means output should be 1. That fellow should go for playing tennis. So if x belongs to P means it's a positive example. But for positive example, when I have calculated the product of Wi into xi, so when I have done this for a positive example, what I got is this result which I got is less than 0. It means what? It should not be less than 0, right? Because if I look into the data set, it says it's a positive example. It means what? There is a need for correction. There is an error here. It's a positive example, but when I perform Wi into xi, I am finding it to be less than 0. It means what? If it is a positive example, this summation should not be less than 0. It means that there is a need for correction. What correction I should do? I can't change x1, x2, x3 values. They are the inputs. I can't change them. Then what should I change? I should change the weights. I should change the weights. So what we will do? We will update the weight like this. W is equal to W plus X, right? This is called as calibration. Calibrating the error means slowly we are trying to make some changes. Slowly we are trying to update the weight. Now what I am doing, I am increasing the value of W, right? So what will happen next time? If I again try to repeat this loop, again if it is less than 0, again this W will be updated, right? So same thing, if the example, if x belongs to n, if it is a negative example, then obviously the summation should be less than 0. But if the summation is greater than 0, here, second case, by looking at training data, I understand that it's a negative example. But when I am doing this sigma of Wi into xi, I am getting that product as greater than or equal to 0. It means what? It is a negative example. So this should not exceed 0. Means again I need some correction here. So what is happening here? It should be less than, but it is going beyond 0. So here I need to subtract. And in the above example, it should be greater than 0, but it is becoming less than 0. So here I should increase, here I should increase, here I should decrease. That's the reason W equal to W plus X, W equal to W minus X. So slowly this algorithm will try to converge. Slowly we will try to reach to a place where always these if conditions will be true. Like if it is a positive example, and this will also be greater than 0, right? So that when we reach to that point, when we reach to convergence, what will happen is our weights will not be further updated. We will reach to a point where these conditions will never become true. These conditions will never become true, and our weights will not be further updated. Means if x is belonging to positive example, then obviously this product will be greater than 0. So both will not be true. If both are true, then I am updating my weights. So this loop will run, and it will reach to a point. It will reach to a point where I will never update the weights. Means it will reach to a point where my weights will be updated so that it can give me maximum accuracy. So these are the two steps, that's all these 5 or 6 lines which I have written is called as perceptron learning algorithm. But if you look into the standard textbook which we are referring, Tom Mitchell, right, instead of using the word perceptron learning algorithm, he calls it as perceptron training rule. Both are same. So in the rule he will talk about only these 2 points. So if I directly talk about these 2 points, you will not understand anything. That's the reason I have mentioned it in the form of an algorithm. So friends, this is how we will make some changes in the weights, and slowly we will reach to convergence point. Slowly we will reach to convergence point, right? So till now, is it clear to everyone? Please let me know, because now we are going to discuss one important concept called as gradient descent. So please let me know in the chat box, perceptron learning algorithm is clear to everyone or not? Please respond. B5, when summation is less than threshold. Summation is less than threshold means obviously then it will be what will happen is we have to subtract it from threshold, right? We will not compare this summation with threshold, rather we will apply a subtraction operation. Means if that summation is less than 0, then the perceptron should not fire, and if it is greater than 0, the perceptron will fire. So it has nothing to do with, like, when summation is less than threshold, that particular case will not trigger your perceptron, right? So that's what, like, it will finally lead to less than 0 case. Suppose threshold, like suppose you say, sir, I will buy a mobile phone if the rating, overall rating of the product is 3.5. Now that was your guess, but when you have opened the website and you have searched for the mobile phone, let us say Samsung Galaxy G7, you have searched and the rating says it is 3.4. You thought in your mind, like, if it is 3.5 or above, you would like to buy, but the rating shows you 3.4, means the summation part is 3.4, threshold which you kept is 3.5. So if 3.4 less than 3.5, obviously you will not buy the product, right? Means in perceptron terminology, output will be 0, right? Is it clear, B5? B5, is it clear? Yeah. So perceptron learning algorithm, I hope it is clear to everyone. Shall we move on? Shall we move on to gradient descent? Please let me know. Shall we move on? Yeah. Now, friends, before we move on to gradient descent, right, I have a question for you. Right. I hope you remember y is equal to mx plus c, height and weight example, friends. Right. Suppose height, weight. This is actually, in machine learning, we call this problem as linear regression problem. So y equal to mx plus c is actually a problem called as linear regression, right? So height, I have height values, some height values I have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, right? Then some weights I have. So what we have studied, if you remember, relationship between height and weight, means I want to weight is my dependent variable, height is the independent variable. So first I will train my machine learning model by giving some sample training data. Let us say like this 100 or 10, 200 examples. I will, both height and weight values I have with me. I train my model by giving these 200 inputs, and after that I will try to predict by giving some height, and my program will tell what should be the ideal weight. So on what basis my program is telling, my program is able to tell on what basis it is able to predict the weight, means it has already studied the relationship between the existing 200 records data. That is what is learning, machine learning, right? So what it will do, how it will try to establish the relationship. Now, how many dependent variables I have? I have only one dependent variable, which is called as one dependent variable, which is called as weight. Sorry. I have only one dependent variable, which is called as weight, right? How many independent variables I have? I have only one independent variable called as height, right? So what I'll do, I'll try to plot the relationship between, let us say, this is the weight variable, this is the height variable. Now I'll try to plot the relationship. Let us say if height is 3.4, what should be the weight? Let us say the weight is this much. So I'll get a point here, right? So if the height is something else, weight should be something. So like that, I'll get some points here, right? Like this, I'll get some points. So I try to connect these points. And I draw a line like this, right? So friends, this is nothing but we are trying to apply the concept of y is equal to mx plus c. Y is equal to mx plus c. So this m is nothing but the slope. This m is a slope. I hope you remember equation of a line. M is a slope. Slope means what? It will study the rate at which changes are being done. Means when I make some changes in height, how much proportion of change is seen in weight. So we try to study that rate of change that is represented by slope. Fine. Now what is my x here? In this example, my x part is height, which is independent variable, height. And y is my dependent variable, means which I want to actually calculate. So which I want to actually calculate, which is weight. So I say my machine learning model, my program is predicting the weight for a given height. That is possible because I have this 200 examples I have studied. I have filled these 200 values into y equal to mx plus c, and my program has understood one important point, that is slope. Okay, how these changes are being done. When I make some change in height, how much change is seen in weight. Like that, not one example, it has seen 200 examples. So now it will know what should be the appropriate value for m. Now when you give certain height, like you say height is 7.7, height is 7.7, then I already know, my program already knows like how this m value is behaving. So it will try to multiply that m value with 7.7, and it will try to predict what is the weight. So this m value is calculated by observing the slope. Now, okay, till this point, this is the story of linear regression. This is called as linear regression. Fine. And I hope till this point it is clear to everyone. So till this point, is it clear to everyone? Please let me know, because I have a very, very important question for you. Till this point, is it clear to everyone? It's a very simple example. So 572. B5, is it clear to you? D5, D6. D5, D6, please respond. D5, D6. If you are available, you can please respond. Right. So fine. We'll move on. Right. Now the question is, now what I want to ask is, W is equal to mx plus c. Fine. What is M? Now everyone has understood the importance of M. So M is the actual logic. So M is nothing but it is the slope. So slope is nothing but the rate of change, means how this in this training data in our 200 examples for which we know height and weight. So for all those 200 examples we have observed and we have studied how much proportionate change is noticed in weight when I make some changes in height. If I can understand that slope, if I can understand that proportionate rate of change, then I can do the prediction. So that is what we are doing in linear regression. So that is fine. Now why we use this C? What is the importance of this C? What is this importance of this C? This is a very, very important question. And friends, and if anybody can answer this question, on record I am saying, not for everyone, the one who answers this question first, the first student who is going to answer this question, for him, oh my god, for him I will give 25 out of 25 mid marks and full marks in the lab also. So 572 has already answered, but can you elaborate? Can you elaborate? It is not sufficient because my offer is too big. So 572's answer is not yet elaborated, not yet clear. Anybody can respond. Internal 25 out of 25, and in constant value that everyone knows, my dear, mx plus c is constant. Okay, fine. Why? The question is why? Y equal to mx plus c is constant. I think all students who are present here probably they know. So please try. Only 572 is trying to minimize the rate of error. Not really. Error manager, no. Only two people are trying. See, 25 internal and your full marks in lab exam, guaranteed. Threshold value. Actually, frankly speaking, you all are correct. How many? Three people are responding? No, all you three people are what we say, to some extent, not to some extent, to the large extent, you people are correct, but the answer is not complete. It is not complete. In some cases, if mi is 0, to ensure that there is some sort of change, we add c. b5, you are almost there. So shall I answer, or people will still try because the offer is too big? Wait, sir. Don't Google it. You will not get the answer. You don't Google it because my question is very straightforward question, but you don't get it in the Google. And for such questions with this much big offer will not be given. You know that. So I am not going to give such a big offer for answers which you can easily get it on Google. Accuracy. All these words are, so close to the answer. Accuracy, minimum value. Weight, sir, is not the answer, but maybe 572 instead of WAIT weight, probably you could have said WEIGHT weight. Fine. I'll answer this. I'll answer this, but how many people won B5, D5, 88, 70, 72? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 people have attempted, right? For all these 5 people, I'll award 25 out of 25 internal marks. Intercept No, it is called as intercept, but it is that is we have what we have studied in our basic math, right? Y equal to mx plus c, c is intercept. But fine, that's okay. What is the purpose of that intercept? I told you, no, you you don't get this one on Google. Intercept on y-axis. Now people are responding. Many people are coming. B5, just note down the numbers of these students. I am very happy that you people have attempted, and all of you are correct. May not be, you could not convince me, but you people are all correct, right? Reasonably you are correct, and I'm happy for that. And B5, just record these numbers: G3 515 72 70 88, D5 and B5 also. B5, just note these numbers. We will give them 25 out of 25 in mid exam, right? B5, are you there? Just note down, my dear, these numbers, 5 or 6 people. Yeah, leave it, leave it. You people have attempted. I'm happy. Fine, leave it. And we have given good offer also, right, sir? Look at this one. Very simple. It is intercept. All are correct. It is called as intercept. Yeah, it is called as intercept. But why? What is the need of that intercept, right? Whenever you apply y equal to mx plus c, you might have seen lines like this. Sorry, it is not looking straight. Something like this. Or maybe you have seen lines like this. Or maybe a line like this. Or maybe a line like this. Right? You never ever see a line. You never see a line something like this. Oh my God. You never see in y equal to mx plus c, you never see a line which generally passes through origin, right? If you observe, you can Google and say y equal to mx plus c, some images in Google Images, you will see some lines somewhere here or here or here, something like that, right? The answer is very simple, sir. Why we use that intercept, why we use that c, right? Someone told, sir, to minimize the error. Yeah, that is correct, but very specifically what error, what kind of why we use that c, someone told it is bias. All are correct. I'll tell you simple answer with respect to this example. For any given height, for any given height, right, for any given positive value of height, can I have weight to be 0? Height is 2.2 feet, very small. Can I have weight to be 0? Right? For any given positive value of height, I can't have weight to be 0. Right? If my model predicts and it says, okay, your height is so and so, weight should be 0 kgs. Is it possible? Is it a possible and valid weight? Is it a possible and valid weight? Can you respond? Is it a possible and valid weight? If my program says additive constant, all these words are coming from internet. Right? But see, that's what is the purpose of asking this question, my dear friends. All these answers, generally, suppose if you are attending an interview, you people will give all these answers, but interviewer will expect, like, c means intercept, c means additive constant. No, interviewer is also aware of these words. He don't want all these things. What interviewer will try to extract is whether you understood the meaning of that c or not, whether you understood the concept behind that additive constant or not. That is what is the intention. So I can't say that for a given height weight should be 0 kgs at any cost. I don't want that weight to be 0, right? So that's the reason if you apply that y equal to mx plus c, In any case, by chance, if my mx produces a 0 also, this plus c additive constant will make sure that it can't be 0, because if my model says weight is 0, it is ridiculous, right? Suppose if you say, if you ask my model height is 7.7, and if model says that for 7.7 feet weight should be 95 kgs, let us say originally the correct answer is 99 kgs. Fine, it is accepted, right? 95 kgs and 99 kgs, okay, it's not correct, but at least it is close to the expected answer, right? But if my model says answer is 0, then it's absolute blunder. To avoid that, we add this so-called c, or additive constant is a very good word, but of course it's a textbook word and internet word, right? No problem, we will consider d6 also, right? So you got this point, friends, why this in mx plus c, why that c is so important. I hope you understood the importance of c. It's okay, d6, don't worry, don't worry, we will consider you. B5 will note your number also. See, I don't lose anything, no. If I give marks to you, I am not going to lose anything, right? So we will consider all these 6 or 7 numbers. We will consider, because see, you people are responding to me, that's great. That is the one which really motivates me, right? So whether you have bought it from internet or not, it's not a big issue, and we'll consider it, right? So b5, you need to note a d6 number also, right? So that is one thing. Now coming back to our actual concept of gradient descent, we will wind up in another 5 minutes, don't worry, I'll not take any extra class, right? So what is happening in perceptron learning algorithm is, right, in perceptron learning algorithm, if you remember, we have a concept called as linearly separable problems, and problems which are not linearly separable. So this perceptron learning algorithm, it has been proved to work well, and it can even reach to convergence, that is 100% accuracy, if the problems are linearly separable. So what do we mean by linearly separable? We have discussed it so many times in our class. So linearly separable means something like this. So this is my x-axis and y-axis. Suppose I draw a line here. So all the values, all the negative examples, they fall below the line, and positive examples above the line, or vice versa. All negative examples are above the line, positive examples are below the line. So if my entire problem space can be equally divided into two halves, so the one on the one side of the line is positive examples, on the other side I have negative examples. If I can separate my problem domain into two halves like this, then the problem is called as linearly separable. If you remember, we have seen examples of and gate. And was linearly separable, but XOR was not linearly separable. So what has been observed is, this perceptron learning algorithm and the perceptron which we have studied now, it will work well on linearly separable problems, and perceptron will not work well on problems which are not linearly separable. Problems which are not linearly separable, example XOR operation, right? So on non-linearly separable problems which are not linearly separable, on them the perceptron's learning algorithm was found to be not converging effectively. So for that purpose, what we do is, we use a concept of gradient descent to improve or to optimize our algorithm. So friends, what is gradient descent? This is the core part of backpropagation algorithm. This is very, very important, right? So yeah, gradient descent is a technique wherein we use gradient descent to perform something called as parameter optimization. So new value is equal to old value minus step size is the formula. But what do you mean by new value and old value? That we will see. So what is gradient descent means? Gradient descent is a technique wherein we try to make some changes, right, in our parameters so that they can converge effectively, right? So why we are going for gradient descent? Perceptrons are doing well on linearly separable problems. Their learning rate is also good. But for non-linearly separable problems, perceptrons are not learning effectively. So for such problems also, if you want to use perceptron, right, means perceptrons are used to create a neural network, right? Interconnection of all perceptrons in a systematic manner to achieve a goal is a neural network, right? Because we are no more using neurons. Now neurons are not used. Instead of neurons, we use perceptrons. So if I use a neural network also, in my neural network, if I am dealing with non-linearly separable problems, then the learning rate of perceptrons are not really good. So in order to improve the learning rate of perceptron, even for nonlinear problems, we use a concept of gradient descent. So in detail, we will talk about gradient descent in tomorrow's class. And I hope today's class is clear to everyone. Please give me your response and feedback on today's class. Then I have one important point, general message to be shared with you. So before that, please let me know whether today's class is understood or not. Give your feedback to me in the chat box, please.